Listeners be advised. The Soliloquy podcast discuss matters related to the human experience and many that are sexual in nature. Due to this, some conversations may surround triggering topics such as sexual violence, self-harm, abuse, and much more. Please be advised, a list of crisis and psychological resources will be available in the show notes of this episode. With that said, let's get started with the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention please as we go through the following safety instructions.
In the event that there is a loss of cabin pressure, oxygen mask will drop from the overhead. Place the mask over your nose and mouth. Breathe normally as oxygen is flowing even if the mask is not inflated. Be sure to adjust your own mask before helping others.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Soliloquy podcast, where we step out and speak on sexuality. This is your favorite host, Vernon T. Scott, also known as Slaytor Jackson, and for you freaky motherfuckers out there, Sebastian Adams. On today's episode, we're going into the brain, y'all. It's therapy time. We just need to address some traumas. We need to address all the shit that's going on in our lives. So if you have not booked your therapy session yet, I need your ass to go ahead and do it now because we are in session, okay? It's a mental health and relationships episode, and I'm blessed to have Wesley with me as we discuss this topic today. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. How about you?
I'm doing well. So, it is the second time you're appearing on this podcast for this season. Do you mind letting everybody know how they can reach out to you, what you do, all the great things that is Wesley Toma, all the great things? Okay, I mean all.
All right, I'll do my best. I'm Wesley Toma. I am a relationship and intimacy coach. I focus on the LGBTQIA plus and the King communities. I try to help people be better themselves, be better for themselves and in themselves, be comfortable. You can find me on my website is wesleytoma.com. I do have some socials, but I'm kind of an old man and I forget to use them, so I don't really have much on them. But I think the best way would be my website. And if you want to chat with me, go there. You can book an appointment with me if you want.
Yes, and please book those appointments. Most definitely. If you're listening to this episode, you know that you need to go to therapy and talk about some things. Granted, yes, he's not a therapist, he's a coach, but he can make sure that you get your life moving forward, okay? Book an appointment, all right, y'all? Please do, because this year we're focusing on mental health. There's a lot of healing we need to do, and shit is crazy. I don't know exactly what the hell is going on in 2024, but we live in America. Shit is crazy. Okay.
Okay. Can't get any better than 2023.
Look. So one of the things that we were talking about in our intake meeting for this episode was that trauma impacts our relationships. And just off the bat, I know that trauma can be the stuff that we've dealt with our families, our friends, like even random ass comments about your looks as a child is something that can impact you today. So what are some of the traumas that you are aware of that impacts relationships, or has there been any traumatic experiences that impact your relationship in the past, or any of your relationships?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think we all have some form of trauma, whether it's big or small. I don't, I think we all have some things that, everything impacts us. I know for me, I have things in my past that affect the way I feel and the way I act. And I'm assuming this is going to come out after the last one, where I talked about the last episode I was on. I talked about not feeling comfortable walking down the street, holding my husband's hand because of past trauma, because of a time when I was raised where it was dangerous to be out in public and be a gay man or a gay woman or whatever. It was dangerous. So yeah, that impacts me very much so. And honestly, as a kinkster, there's been a lot of I also grew up in a religious household.
Mhm.
So, not only did I have to like fight the idea that being gay was a sin, but I had to fight the idea that these weird things that I like to do are a sin, and these are not normal. And I had to accept the fact that they are. And to this day, sometimes I still have, those moments where I'm like, I have to remind myself that no, I'm not sinning for one. But also I'm not weird. I'm a normal
Mm.
human being who has normal feelings just like everyone else. And I express them in the way that I feel is the best way to express them, just like you do, you know? So yeah, I mean, I think we all have those traumas, whether it's from like a traumatic experience where someone like you were attacked or something happened to you physically, or if it's societal, because there's societal trauma. Like me and my husband opened up a relationship last year, and it took us a little bit because of society's thoughts on relationships and monogamy,
Mm.
and how being poly is not normal. And being poly goes against everything that we should believe in. And that wasn't trauma that happened to me specifically, but that was societal trauma that we both had to kind of work through. And to this day, we still kind of work through it a little bit, because sometimes it still does rear its ugly head. So yeah, I think trauma very much impacts us, and I think the best thing to do with that trauma I don't is embrace it, is accept that it's there. Like, I'm not saying, be happy that you have it, because trauma sucks, but more of like, accept that you are who you are, regardless of the trauma, regardless of the situation, and try to turn it into a positive. Try to turn it into a thing that you want to be good. Like, I have trouble holding my husband's hand in public. So sometimes I will make a point, very, very prominent point, of holding his hand in public, because fuck them.
Mm.
And it's like, that's what you need to do. It just kind of accept it, embrace it, and just be you and be happy with who you are.
Yes, you made a plethora of great points that I do want to like dive into if I
Sure.
can remember all of them. Like I hope I can. But like one of the things that I was thinking about was like when you brought up religious trauma, and
Mhm,
I one of those people who also have experienced that for myself, and I know some of this, like whenever I have a full body orgasm and I'm extremely satisfied and pleased, I do feel like I make a joke about it now, that, oh, I feel disgusting. I feel like a horrible person. I feel like I've sinned in a
mhm,
way. And
mhm,
it brings me to a point of feeling depressed, for a moment. And I know a lot of that comes from being in spaces throughout my life where everything is supposedly a sin that I'm doing sexually. And
mhm,
because of that, I've internalized that in some way, in that even when I get to the peak of my pleasure, I'm like, oh, I really did do something that's horrible. And I might
mhm,
really want to think about that and feel ashamed of that. But I think one of the things I am doing for myself is just like, at least with a partner that I'm very comfortable with, have them call me slut or whore and all these other things to like validate that feeling, even though
mhm,
I know that they're not being serious about the language that they're using, but just to bring me further away from the guilt of how I was raised and
mhm,
more into the present day of me, because being called a whore or slut or hoe is not something that I see as being something negative, because I call myself that regardless, because I'm a sexual person. I enjoy fucking, okay?
mhm,
So I'm going to be more comfortable with that versus having that thought of being a sinner in the back of my head just
mhm.
because I came a couple of times in the night.
Oh yeah, growing up, I could tell you, like, and it was probably for the same reasons. Like, whenever I would masturbate and I would come, the second I came, I would feel disgusting.
Mm,
I would feel gross, and I would be like, and the thought of sex just was revolting to me at that as soon as I was done. And it took me a long time to get past that. But I will say, you know, when if you are a kinkster, if you and kink is a great way to express those trauma. Like you said, you like being called a slut and a whore. That's, degradation and humiliation is a kink. And, it does help. It can help if it's done right. If it's done wrong, it can make it more harmful. But if kink is used properly, it has been known to help with trauma, help with these things, and help people get through them, feel empowered, feel better about themselves, and no longer have those major issues. I mean, granted, I'm not saying do that instead of therapy. Obviously, if you have trauma in your life, see a therapist. I think everyone should see a therapist, but
Right.
use this as a tool on top of that, and maybe if you have a cool therapist, you can talk to them about it, and they'll work with you through it too. But I think, if done well, if done with the people you trust, with people kink can be very healing.
Mm-hmm. And that's actually what one of the things we were going to talk about today too. That kink, it can be trauma therapy for some
Mhm.
people, and you can see it played out in different ways, and many people have that assumption that, oh, the only reason why people are into kink play, BDSM, and all that is because they've had a traumatic life, and that's not true.
Mm-mm.
Just to help other people out there who have that belief, that's not true. There are some people within the kink spaces that have experienced trauma, and kink helps them with their trauma, but everyone who's participating in the kink lifestyle is not a victim of some kind of sexual assault, rape, or
Right.
childhood abuse, or even beating, or all of those things. Is not maybe you could say correlation, yeah, but is not causal. There's
Exactly.
people who've been abused as children, adults, whatever the case is, and they cannot even participate in anything kink related because it is a trigger. So let's try not to write the story of people just because you don't understand the kink lifestyle. But
Exactly.
there is a space for trauma healing within
Mhm.
kink spaces. And we briefly talked about it last episode, consensual non-consent,
Mhm.
where that's something that some people have used. Some people who've experienced rape or something of that nature, they utilize that to recreate that space, but having control within that, because now they're the authors of the narrative. They're the ones who have control of the conversation of what is their sexual experience, and that's a way for them to heal, like with exposure therapy. But
Mhm.
and then even when it comes to BDSM, there's bondage and spankings and all those other things, people can utilize that as a way to heal. Age play has been used for people to heal their inner child. So
Absolutely.
it's there's space for that, but it's not necessarily automatically there because someone has experienced some type of trauma.
Yeah, I can say, for me personally, and I mentioned this the last episode as well. I've only really subbed for my husband. He's the only person I've ever subbed for, and that's because I trust him 100%, and I know he has my best interest at hand. And he's not going to do anything I don't ultimately want him to do.
Mhm.
So because of that, and I like subbing to him because I do have a personality where I hate being not being in control. I hate being out of control. I don't get drunk because I don't like the idea of being out of control. I don't get high because I feel like I'm not in my full capacity, So I will get buzzed. I will, smoke sometimes, but I don't like getting fucking shit faced because it's a loss of control, and I don't like that. But with him, I can lose that control. I can give up that control. And for me, it has been kind of healing because it showed me that I don't need to be the guy in charge. I don't need to be the one making all the decisions. So he's the only one I've fully subbed for. But since we've opened our relationship, I've been a little subby for other people, not to the same extent because I don't know them as well. But I've been more comfortable with myself and with my body and understanding that people are not going to take advantage necessarily. So yeah, for me, that's helped a great deal. And a lot of people, it can help, like you said. Actually, I have a friend who had some really bad traumatic experiences growing up, and because of that, basic vanilla sexual activities, they trigger him. But he's found his release in kink. and where he can do things that doesn't necessarily mean somebody like grabbing at his penis or trying to suck his dick or forcing him to suck theirs, whatever. He's found an outlet that has helped him grow and become a better human being.
The Soliloquy podcast focuses on the variability of sexual expression. When it comes to sexual expression, we often depend on pornography to illustrate how one must perform sexually. For those who have not learned this by now, the stuff you see in porn is not real. Pornography provides a singular perspective of sexual expression that is not often the reality we see during our own sexual encounters. The Soliloquy podcast is a conversation that takes you outside of the compressed box of what many know about sex. Some of the topics we discuss includes kinks, condom usage, status disclosure, and past sexual experiences. The Soliloquy podcast steps out on sexual norms and recognizes that the norm is not the only normal. Subscribe today and join the conversation.
Or, trying to suck his dick or forcing him to suck theirs, whatever. He's found an outlet that has helped him grow and become a better human being.
And when you start talking about your lack of wanting others to take control or losing control, it reminded me of a very common trauma response. Not to say that yours is rooted in trauma, but there's many people don't recognize that their sense of control comes from a traumatic experience, be it from how they were raised, a lack of resources, or whatever the case is. They need to ensure that they have control of every aspect of their life, and they think of it as being, oh, that's just the way I am, and that's just how I live my life, blah, 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 blah. And then they go to therapy and they realize, well, that trauma, you had some trauma in your past where you lost everything and you had to rebuild yourself from the ground up. And the reason why you got to that point was because somebody else has failed you, and you ever since then, you wanted to ensure that you had all the power of all the things, blah, 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 wherever the narrative is from that individual person. And many don't recognize that. Yet, I say this because people would look at kink stuff and automatically pathologize that, but don't recognize that their sense of lack of control or their adherence to being in control is more likely something that's rooted in trauma than how they express themselves sexually. And it's just a very interesting thing.
Oh, yeah. And what I find fascinating is so when most people talk about this type of thing, using kink to heal trauma, most people think on the sub side, but I think, in my opinion, for me as well, it's just as helpful on the dom side. I worked with somebody who was very, very, very meek, very mild, very small. It's in how they portray themselves in normal world. But they started working with kink and started to dom, and they gained that confidence, and they gained that, I don't want to say aggression, but they gained that feeling of it's okay to be loud sometimes, it's okay to speak up sometimes. And that came to them because of that time they spent in kink. And it's a process, it's not going to happen overnight. And if you're trying to work through something and you're using kink to do it, don't expect it to fix itself right away, and don't expect to be able to go the whole way right away. Like you said, if somebody's dealing with abuse and they're using the CNC scene to deal with that abuse, don't be afraid to stop it before it even starts, because you got to work at your pace. You don't want to then turn it into a triggering thing. If the whole point is the whole purpose of it is to say, this is the thing that happened, I'm still okay, I'm safe, and I'm in control. And sometimes that reinforces it. If you're doing a CNC scene, and you're dealing with trauma, and you stop it before it happens, that reinforces the fact that you're in control, that it will stop whenever you want it to. And it's happening because you want it to happen, not because you're being forced to let it happen. So don't be afraid to speak Don't be afraid to take control of the situation, especially if you're a sub, especially if you're the one being dominated. Don't be afraid to stand up for yourself and say, we're done right now. This is as far as I'm ready to go. Next time, maybe we can go further, because it is a process.
Yeah, and I know like in the past because so I've gotten very good at reading people over the years and just trying to like even trying to understand the intents and their intentions behind some of the things they say and do and whatnot. But I've experienced in the past where people say that they're a dominant person, and by dominant they mean they're aggressive. And because I always ask, what do you mean by dominant? I need to know because there are certain things that I may allow and certain things I will not. So I just need to know exactly what they mean about it. But there's been people who've wanted to dom me or what have you, and I will ask them about, okay, so what does that mean for you? And then I learned that through our conversations that they just like to be in control. And then I asked them, okay, but how good are you at following other people? And like, if I'm going to be your sub, I have to, like what you mentioned last episode, when I was like, I agree. I believe that the sub is the person with all the power in this because you have to respect their boundaries. At the end of the day, the dom is there to facilitate. So if I'm going to be subbing for you and your only mindset is to be in control, are you going to be able to listen to me when I say this is making me uncomfortable, or this is I need you to be softer, or whatever the case is? So one of the things I used to challenge the people who want, well, it's funny because it never worked out with some of these people, but I would challenge them and say, hey, how about you experience being a sub first before you try to dom me? Because I need you to recognize that it is okay for you to lose control. That way, when we're engaging in this, you know that you're not the one that's fully in control whenever we're like even if it's spanking, because if you hurt me, we have a problem now. So like that's one of the things that I used to at least try to build that connection so that we can move further into that scene between him and I, she and I, or whatever the person is that I will be subbing for. But yeah, that's one of the things I used to do.
Oh yeah, I 100% agree. I think I very proudly will say this. I think I'm a better dom because I've been willing to sub. Because I've been willing to give up that control, because I know what it's like. I've experienced it myself, and I know how freeing and terrifying it can be, and that's something that a lot of people don't know. And I also want to like make something like kind of clear something up a little bit, because not you obviously, but I think a lot of people get this confused. They think when they think of a dom, they think of a very specific personality. Like you said, they think of an aggressive, sadistic type of person who's going to do what they want, and they're going to whatever. That's not necessarily. That's not a dom. That's a predator. Let's be real. A dom is not going to do things just to hurt you. And maybe that's what you want. Maybe you want a dom to do that, but that dom is still going to show you respect. Even if it is a situation where they're disrespecting you, they're still going to do it the way you want them to do it. Like I say for myself, I call myself a soft dom. And what that means is I like to play in praise and pleasure over punishment. I'm not sadistic. I can have a sadistic side, but I'm not a sadistic dom. I'm not going to hurt you just to hurt you. I'm going to hurt you because you want me to hurt you and because you like it. Now on the same side of it, if I have a sub that I set up with rules and they break the rules, yes, I'm going to punish them, because that's those are rules we set up. But I'm not going to I'm still not going to go further than I know they're okay with. I'm not going to punish them in a way that I don't think they're going to be okay with. It's not about it. It's not about, it's so hard to say this, but the right way. It's not about controlling the situation as a dom. It's about, like you said, it's about facilitating. It's about making the situation intense, comfortable, pleasurable, and purposeful. If you can do that, then you're great. If a dom, like you said, when I'm doming, when I'm talking to someone, I don't care how much into dom space I get, I am still watching them and I'm still focused on them. If I'm doing something, if I'm hurting them, I'm focused on them to make sure I'm not going too far. Like we talked about last time, I like CBT. If I'm squeezing somebody's balls, I'm going to be watching their face. I'm going to be listening to them. I'm going to be watching their micro expressions to see when I've gone too far or if I'm going too far. And, I don't care how much into dom space I get, that can never stop. If you're ever with a dom that says, oh, I got carried away, don't fucking play with that dom ever again, because they don't know what they're doing. If they're getting carried away, then they're not focused. And that's when dangerous things can happen.
Yes. Whew. One of the things that hit me was like for any person who's out there who may have that strong feeling that they need to have control over everything, first and foremost, get into therapy, and I
Yes.
mean that out of love. And the reason why it's good to work on that and figure out where that comes from is because unfortunately you cannot have control over all things. The only thing that you truly can have control over is yourself. We are in a space where anything can happen for whatever reason it may be at any given time, and it's all out of our circle of control, because our circle of control, it only extends as far as we can reach, and that's about it. You cannot control the actions of another person. You can't control the actions of a job. You can't control the actions of if you get hired or fired or whatever the hell goes on in government. Yes, we can vote. We're not going to say anything about that. I'll leave politics over there today. But like, we can only control our own actions and our reactions to things.
Exactly.
And when you extend that control over to another person, I guarantee you it's because of something traumatic that you've experienced in your life and you just don't know exactly where that's coming from.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. And I think a lot of it is also like, and this is something I kind of joke about, but it's at the same time, it's not, I don't joke, but it's like, if you're with that type that has to always be in control, come over, I'll stick you on my St. Andrew's cross for an hour. We'll play and we'll lose that control, but you'll come out of it in just as good condition as you went into it. I'm going to show you how you can be in control without taking advantage. And I think, like you said, I think everybody, every dom should see what that's like, because it is eye-opening.
So on a different note, you mentioned this a little bit earlier about triggers and understanding your triggers. And I know for myself, like, knowing your triggers takes time, but when you recognize them, it's beneficial for you. Like, I know for myself, because I was right next to a tornado once. High winds is a trigger for me, and I have to remind myself when I hear high winds, I'm safe, I'm okay. It's not a tornado, it's just fast winds, and you might need to fix your fucking windows, Vernon, so you don't hear this whistling sound all the fucking time. So yeah, I have to do that to myself just to make sure I stay sane and make sure I don't have a panic attack and all the other things. But of course, there are other triggers that I have too. And it's important, and this is another thing which therapy can help you with, or even coaching. If you have a trauma-focused coach, they can help you identify some of your triggers too. But knowing your triggers help you move throughout life a lot better. It helps you communicate better with people. For example, I've had a conversation, I mentioned it on this podcast before, and Mill and I had this conversation on her podcast, if I remember. But she's the host of Closed Door Conversations, Mill Ivory. She was talking about how she doesn't like it when someone spanks her on her ass, because it triggers her because of abuse that she's experienced in her past. And like, knowing those things help you articulate that with your partner. Like, hey, we can do all these great things, but what you cannot do is smack me on my ass, or in my case, remove a condom without me knowing. Even if we are in that point of trusting each other, it triggers me, so I cannot do that. Like, knowing those things helps you communicate with your partners going forward.
Mhm.
What are some of your triggers, or what is your sentiment as relates to understanding your triggers
I
too?
think, I think it's important to listen to yourself. I think it's important to listen to your body, to your mind. I mean, I have triggers, if we all do. And what also I want to point out as well, you may have a trigger you don't even know about.
Mm,
Like I found out a month ago I had a trigger that I had no idea that I had. It wasn't a sexual trigger, but I was hanging out with friends and we were talking about, I think my husband was making a joke saying, "Oh yeah, when I get drunk, I tend to get naked," or when I get high, I tend to get naked or something like that. And one of my friends, we were kind of joking about it. It's like, I can't remember which one of you gets naked when they're high or drunk. And that was a trigger for me because I've had someone take advantage of me when I was drunk.
mm,
And I didn't realize that was a trigger until he made that comment. And I'm like, oh, that really hit me weird. So don't be afraid. Like, yeah, I think triggers are very important to pay attention to, and they're very important to be aware of. And don't be afraid to say, oh, I just found a trigger I didn't know about, and talk about it, because that's the only way you're gonna get through it. Like, if he doesn't know it's triggering, he's gonna keep doing that.
mm,
If your friend, if your friend is someone who doesn't know, getting her being spanked in the ass is a trigger, they're gonna spank her in the ass, and they're not gonna know anything, and she's gonna have a miserable time. Because so whereas you just say this is a trigger, and if the person is respectful, they're not gonna do that, and you'll have fun. Listen to your triggers.
Yeah, and if any person does not respect that conversation and respect you afterwards, they are not your friend. Keep it
Nope,
moving. Don't even try to
absolutely.
fight for it, to be honest. I know, like, when I was younger, there was a friend group that I kind of fought for, but it was the Call of Duty days where everybody used to say rape when it comes to
Yep.
killing somebody on screen, and I just vocalized to them, hey, this that makes me very uncomfortable how, one, y'all are so happily able to talk about rape in this way, but can y'all not do that? And of course there was some excuses, it's just a game and all this other stuff, that's just what the language is. And honestly, I'm happy that I, not to say that they're bad people or anything like that, they're actually amazing people, but I had to, I'm glad that I removed myself from that, because I would have been getting triggered on a daily basis because of some of the trauma that I've experienced as a child as it relates to assaults. So it's like, you really do have to understand, or put yourself in a surrounding of people that will support you and do their best not to trigger you
Mhm.
in any way possible.
So wait, are you saying the internet is toxic? I don't.
Oh, of course it's not. No way
No,
the internet can be toxic. How can it be?
I know it's so beautiful.
It's such a safe space, such a safe
Very much
space.
so.
I love
Very comfortable.
it. Like, and another thing, people, you also have to recognize when you trigger yourself, most definitely, if it's something that may, I can't say it's irrelevant because the trigger is there for a reason.
Mhm.
But if you are in a group of friends and something happens and you're automatically, if your day is ruined by just the slightest of things, then it's time to evaluate what happened there. Why is it that my day is no longer good because of this conversation that I had, or what action that this person may have done that may have been significant or insignificant, or even if it's a family member, if they said a certain word and it's just got you all the way upset, understanding where does that stem from? Was it
Mhm.
the individual themselves that was triggering? Why was the words triggering? It takes a lot of in-depth understanding to figure out exactly where that trigger stems from, and
Mhm.
therapist just makes it a little bit easier.
Mhm. Absolutely. And I think also, um, and it's so funny because like sometimes certain things will trigger and other times they won't. Like, I know for me, if a straight person calls me a faggot, I'm gonna get very offended. But
Mhm.
if one of my brothers or sisters or others in the queer community use the term, it's not gonna bother me.
Mhm.
because it's coming from a different space. And it's like, I think when you're working with triggering, when you're being triggered, and this is how I work, and I'm not saying this is for everyone, don't take this as what you should do, this is how I handle it personally. If I'm with somebody intimately and they do something that triggers me, I'm going to stop. I'm going to have a conversation. I'm not going to stop this. I'm not going to stop the whole scene completely, but I will take a pause. We will talk about it. I will gauge them. If it was an accident, accidents happen. I understand that. I can give you grace for an accident. We'll get back into it. But if they do it a second time, that shit is not fucking up by accident. Then it's on purpose. So that's how I handle it. And I'm not saying you should do it that way. If being triggered the first time is enough, that's enough. That no is no, and that should be enough for you. But don't. What I'm saying is, don't feel like if you're being triggered, it has to necessarily end. There are ways, if you don't want it to end, there are ways to work around it by having a quick, let's call yellow, let's have a conversation, talk about this again, gauge the situation, and then if you feel safe and comfortable, go back into it. If not, you stop.
Mhm. Yep. Oof. Conversations that are needed.
Oh my God.
Like there's so many times that I wish that I knew what I knew at a younger age,
Oh yeah.
and how many, I can't say horrible, but uncomfortable situations I could have gotten myself out of just by having the right words to communicate those things.
Mhm.
I'm grateful from those experiences of the lessons that I've learned, but at the same time, some lessons you don't need the hard reality to learn
No,
from, to be honest.
absolutely.
Bring me the book. I'd rather read it. Thank you.
Yeah. I have it's amazing. I think you kind of touched on it on the very last episode. Um, people tell me they trust me. I've worked with subs that some have no experience, are brand new to kink, some that have been doing it for years. And when we talk, and I want to talk, I want to have conversations, I want to get to, I jokingly say, I want to get to know you as a person before I treat you like an object, because I want to be able to respect you and I want to be able to understand you. And when I talk to my subs and I get to know them and learn and find what they like, what they don't like, and show them, just through my words, that I'm not going to take advantage of this. They so many times they say, I feel so comfortable with you. Most dons aren't like this. Usually they're, like I have one guy I was talking to that, like, we talked about, orgasming, and sometimes, the dom doesn't want you to orgasm, but if you do accidentally, you get punished. And he's like, I was always afraid of, like, orgasming because I was afraid to get punished. I'm like, look, and I told them flat out, I'm like, if that's the thing for you, because if for him it was more of like, if you want to keep me from orgasming, fine, but if you touch my dick, I'm gonna come. And I said, okay, then how about this? If I touch your dick, I forfeit the right to not have you orgasm. And that way, if you do, I can't punish you for that, because that I knew that going into it, and I knew that exactly what was going to happen by doing that. So I shouldn't hold you responsible because I took advantage of that situation. And that just takes respect. That's all it is. But a lot of doms won't do that. A lot of sadistic doms will just like, oh, I'm gonna make you come. Oh, now you're in trouble.
Right. Oh, see, this is to continue to do the great work. Honestly. So before I go into the never have I ever section, I do have a question for you. This is off topic. Can you are you able to, would be the better way to ask that, are you able to engage in a sexual experience, kink or non-kink related sexual experience with somebody that you do not respect?
I think yes, I could, but it would not be an enjoyable experience for me. I think I could, if push comes to shove, I could do angry, resentful sex, but it's not fun sex.
Yeah, like for myself, I don't know. Because when I was thinking of asking you, I was like reflecting on if I'd be able to. I think I've done it in the past.
Mhm.
And again, this was when I was a lot younger. And but today I don't think I could. Um,
Yeah, if I was pushed to do it, I could probably do it. Like, I don't, like I said, it's not something I want to do. It's not something
mhm,
I would enjoy doing. But if this person wanted to do that, I maybe I would do it as again, like, as long as they were consenting. Like if it was
Yes.
against their if they didn't consent, then absolutely not. But if this is what they wanted, I could probably I think I could probably force myself to do
Yeah. If I'm getting paid, yeah, I can do it.
it. Well, if
But
we're talking money, then
I think, well, there may be a select few that I might be able to do it if I find them attractive
Mhm.
already,
Yeah.
like super attractive. And I'm thinking of specific celebrities. Um, I may muster up the spirit to do it, but I don't think just for the regular, degular person, I would,
Mhm.
unless I found them extremely attractive. But even at that, I probably won't enjoy it because it's just like we're here just to be physical, and I hate that I'm engaging with you and your body in the sense that I'm just here for the gratification only.
Yeah. I
Just
mean,
a busted nut.
I would much rather, instead of resentful sex, I would rather have, humiliation, degradation, kink sex,
Mhm.
because that's what they want. But at the same time of it, I kind of dabble in financial dominance a little bit. And that,
Yes.
that's something that is very much, you know, I mean, that's what they want, but it's also very negative. It's also usually very degrading. So, and honestly, I've worked with some pay pigs or some fin subs that I've not in any way been attracted to, but it's what they wanted. So, and I've been able to put myself past that and do what needs to be done. It's not necessarily sex, but make it worth their while. So I think push comes to shove, I can do it, but it probably have to be the right circumstances.
So teach the whores,
Mhm.
myself included, and some of my members of the audience, how to get into findom. Like,
It, I I will say, as a male, it's very difficult. For some reason, but I don't want to say for some reason, but Finn subs tend to be straight powerful men who are looking for women to dominate them. So it is very hard to get into it as a male. There are websites you can go to, especially if you're a woman, um, which I think like sugardaddy.com, I think, is one of them actually. Um, and there's a bunch of sites you can do it on. And if the thing that I learned to do is, like, if you have a Twitter, set up a Twitter for your fin doming, and kind of post pictures and talk about it, and you'll find people that want to be dominated. A lot of times they'll come to you, and it's
Mm,
just a matter of putting yourself out there as the dom.
So what you're saying is if you build it, they will come.
Absolutely.
Okay. I'm here for it. I need to do a little bit better. Let me download some apps and make web profiles and put Twitter back on my phone,
There you go.
and create a non-freak Twitter account for FinTop. I'm just taking some notes. That's all
Yep.
I'm saying.
For a friend, for a friend.
for,
Yeah.
for a friend, for a
Yeah,
friend,
yeah,
for the
yeah.
whores out there. I love you,
Yeah.
whores. Oh God, you ready for some never have I ever?
Let's do it.
So, never have I ever had sex in a moving car.
What do you consider sex?
See, that's a good question. Let's go with actual penetration and oral.
Oral, yes. Um, Anal or vaginal, no. But I would.
Um,
I mean, well, actually, that's not true. I'm sorry, that's not true. Uh, One time on a bus to New York, I did have sex with my boyfriend.
oh, scandalous. That's
he,
that's a
he
whole.
sat on my lap. We put the jacket over it. Luckily, there was no one sitting in the seat right next to us. It was
See,
tough because I'm not a very quiet person.
like I like that, there was no one around to like actually see. So I love that kind of
Mhm.
like, yes. I've the most that I've done while vehicle is moving is like a hand job or a little bit of finger play. I refuse to do oral while someone is driving because I just care about my safety first.
Mhm.
And for me, while I'm driving and someone's like sucking on me, I'll be extremely distracted. So I'm like I know we'll be in danger at this point, so I don't want to do that.
Mhm.
And for some reason, if I'm not driving and I'm over there, I don't trust that person anymore. So,
Sounds like someone has control issues.
yes, someone is me. Because I'm like, I don't mind putting my life in somebody's hands when I can see the danger coming, but
Yes.
when I cannot, we have a problem.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't want to be blindsided with my death. Well, actually, I might need to start giving oral while someone is driving, because honestly, I don't want to see my death coming either. So here we
Might as well
are.
go and having fun, right?
Right. So, oh, would you rather?
Yes.
Would you rather fall asleep with your lover, or wake up next to them? Hmm. Oh,
Oh,
I get this question though.
this is a hard one
It is.
because for me, my favorite, the two things that I thoroughly enjoy the most is cuddling, cuddling my partner, falling asleep like that. But the other
Oh.
thing that I really, really fucking love is when I get to get up, when I wake up in the morning, because I tend to wake up earlier than my husband. I get up and I'm like ready to get out of bed, and he just kind of rolls over and puts his arm over me,
Oh.
and I have to. It's like now I can't get up, and I love it and I hate it because I want to get out of bed, but I can't. So, oh, geez, this is a hard one. I think if I was push come to shove, I would say I'd rather go to sleep, but I would say that knowing that I'm just going to wake up next to him anyways.
Mm. You know, I feel like for myself, I will rather fall asleep with my partner next to me versus waking up with them near me, because like when I'm waking up, I already know I look ugly and hell as hell, breath stank and all this other shit. Be out of the bed for wherever the hell wakes up in the morning. I'm cranky when I wake up, so I'm okay with them not being there. So like that's where I fit on that. But otherwise, I like the cuddling aspect of it all, and I do want to have the last thing I see when I fall asleep being my partner.
Mhm.
Um, and part of that, like, let's say if I'm 98 years old and my partner and I are still alive. I want to live to at least 100. I'm 103 years old and my partner and I are still alive, and and together.
Mhm.
I would rather that night before I die in my sleep that my partner's the last person I've seen.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
that's the romantic in me.
No, so sweet.
So I have a sex question.
Yes.
Would you be open to trying perineum play? And so the perineum is just that area between the anus and the scrotum or
Yep.
vulva, so the gooch area.
Yep. Would I be interested? I've done it.
I love I love playing in that area a lot.
Feels good.
I don't know why.
Feels
It's
so good.
just it's greatness. Like even with toys,
Hmm.
like for myself, I would rather have a vibrating toy that I can sit in that area versus putting one that I like inserting it into my body, because
Hmm.
that gives me a lot more pleasure than
Oh
just
yeah.
like
What feels so good for me is when I have a guy giving me head, and he's like his thumb is kind of massaging that area.
yes.
Oh
Yes.
my god, it's fucking heaven.
I'll be doing that to people. I
I
think
love
that's
it.
why they be falling in love. And I'm like, bitch, I don't love you like that. I just love pleasure. There's
Yeah.
a difference.
I just know what I'm doing.
Exactly. I get paid for this shit, okay? No, but I need to be. Like
Yeah, right.
but it's such a good like sensual place, and apparently that's where a lot of well, it says the perineum is home to the perineal nerve,
Mhm.
and the stimulating it can feel great for some people.
Yep.
Yep, it truly does. Like I've experienced like encounters with other people who are trying to please me and whatever, and they make it into that area, and I don't know what it is. It's like I can do it so well for myself, but other people cannot do it. And if
Mhm.
I try to tell them, it's just like just do whatever you were doing, okay? I don't
It's good
know.
enough. It's good enough.
It's good enough. It's good enough. Um, but like it's that spot right there.
Mm.
Mm, chef's
Now,
kiss.
if you can get a G spot vibrator and the perineal massage and a blowjob, that's like mind blowing right there.
Look, there was this one person I was giving oral to, and I was playing with their damn, now think about it, I'm talented as hell, but playing with the glands, the
Yep.
dickhead, and massaging the base, while also massaging like the scrotum sac a little bit,
Mhm.
and then massaging the perineum, and yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, I stole a
Heaven.
soul that day.
Yeah, heaven. It's as close as I think I'll ever get to God.
Oh my God. Oh, yeah. Oh crap. I got into too much detail. My grandma be listening to this podcast, and I told her she is too young to be listening to the shit.
Hi,
And
Grandma.
I hope she does right. Don't say hey to her. I hope she doesn't listen to this one. Grandma, skip this episode. It's too late.
Oh, I'm sure Grandma could tell you stories if she wanted to.
True. Look, I swear the best stories come from the older generation because I just like y'all were some whores.
They
I love
were.
it. I was born in the wrong generation because the way that y'all was hoeing back in the day, bitch.
And when they get to that age where they don't give a shit anymore and they have no problem just telling you,
Oh
you'll
my
hear some
God.
stories.
Look, I still cannot get over the conversation my great aunt had with me, my aunt, and well, actually two of my aunts and a cousin. I was like, you did what? And just telling all the details of how she would get a man and all this other stuff, how she secured her man, and how she was hooking up with some other dude. I was like, bitch,
Yep. Oh yeah.
this is tea.
They can
Carry on.
they can play innocent, but they've been wild in their day.
Wild as hell. Like,
Mhm.
don't call me a sinner because bitch, we are on the same level.
Yeah, you're throwing stones in a glass house here.
Right. Look, I'm comfortable saying that I got my wholeness from my granddad on my dad's side,
Mhm.
as well as my grandmother. I'm okay with that.
Hey.
They bred hoe, and that hoe is me, and they
Mhm.
did greatness. Thank y'all for doing what y'all needed to do to bring me here.
Thank you, Grandma.
Thank you. On that note, Wesley, do you have any last words that you would like to share with the audience?
I think what I would like to say is just be okay. You are okay. Be okay. Trauma triggers, they happen. It's not the end of the world. It may feel that way sometimes, but it's not. You can get past it. You can surpass it. Just be just learn to be okay and be okay with yourself and with how you feel. You'll be good.
Amen to that. On that note, thank you so much, Wesley, for coming onto the podcast. I
Thank you.
really appreciate you. To the audience out there, thank y'all so much for listening to the Holiloquy podcast, where we step out and speak on sexuality. Just in case no one else tell you this today, you are beautiful. You are worthy of happiness and joy. You are enough and then some. You may not live up to the expectations of others, but that is okay. You are only required to walk in your own shoes. May each day you live lead you towards abundance. With that said, I love you all and see you next episode. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Holiloquy podcast, where we step out and speak on sexuality. You can subscribe to the podcast through your favorite podcasting app and find us on the web at www.holiloquy.com. That's www.heauxliloquy.com. Share the podcast with your friends and join the conversation.